The more we look into all the programs and responsibilities of our county government, the more things we uncover.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, Shannon, how much they do and how well they do it.
So let's take some time now to get familiar with some of the little-known programs and activities.
You know, we might just surprise you.
Hello everyone, I'm Bill Mance with Jackson County Close-Up. We're here today to have just a real special talk with Joe Ferguson, and he is the department head of our juvenile justice department, and they have the ability to touch people who go kind of wayward when they're young and head them off into a path that really makes them for better citizens. Not all of them, but what a great honor it is to spend a little time. Joe, thanks for joining us today.
Sure, thank you.
So everybody probably wants to know, how many assessments do you do in each year?
I'd say probably about 120, 125. The numbers have gone down. I mean, that's one of the nice things of juvenile crime or what we call referrals that we get from police departments. Over the last 22 years that I've been here, we're probably down near 70% in total referrals. And that's not unique to Jackson County. I wish it would be that this is all the great work, but it's a common trend, not only statewide but nationwide. And it's really, we had a big uprising in the 90s in terms of a lot of juvenile crime, and it's gradually come down and things. The one thing that with the risk assessment that we've seen though too is that we're seeing more higher risk youth come to us versus more of the low risk kids. So you could take some of that in terms of the sheer numbers of kids could have been lower risk kids that we are not now seeing, and it could be because even statewide and nationally is that there's a lot of more prevention programs, and so we aren't seeing kids, which is what I think we all want. It's much cheaper to keep kids out of our system and dealt with at the community level anyway. So I think part of that, I think we're being a little bit smarter in terms of how we're dealing with kids for them not to continue in the system too. And we really looked at that research and evidence in terms of what's most effective with kids.
People will be really surprised by that. I think I'm surprised by that. So that's pretty amazing, really, that the system is actually lowering. I think that everyone might think it was going the other direction based on at least the front page of the newspaper.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Tell me, without saying anybody's name or anything like that, tell me that story that got your heart, or really it keeps you going every day, gets you up in the morning and keeps you going through your work day.
Sure, yeah, and I get this often in terms of, I think when you work with juveniles, people want to know, well, how do you see them change in things? And the interesting thing is, you don't see them change a lot, because we don't have them a long time. And so I've always, over my, what is it now? It's 26 years I've been doing this, that I really have always focused on planting seeds. And so I'm just one person that has contact with that youth for a certain period of time. And what I try to do is when I was working directly with the youth, really trying to have an impact for the time I dealt with them. And then also working with the family to make sure that when we aren't supervising anymore, that the family's taken over, and and connecting them to the community and things. So I think as I've transitioned away from working directly with kids and more into supervision and management, one of the benefits of my current position as the deputy director is that I get to see more of the bigger picture, and so I have a little bit more ability to look at what programming or resources or services that we have that can have the biggest impact on the kids and families we work with. And also looking at what research is showing to be effective. And so making sure that I'm guiding our department down the path it should be. And so some of the times that's not very popular because people think that we should be punishing kids more, but I would rely back on the research, and research has shown that that's not effective, and we have tried that over my career. I mean, we really have put a lot of kids in detention before, and that's good for public safety initially, but you can't keep people locked up forever, and so you have to build those new skills. And so I think in terms of be it how we've used our risk assessment to drive our decisions, and how it being used as kind of our contact standards, and building our case plans and what services we need, and looking at those gaps in services that we have, or what can we do locally to try to keep kids and families connected more, is more of what I see as kind of the success piece. I see kids every once in a while out on the streets, and they recognize me much more than I recognize them, because they're just that sheer volume. But I've connected with kids I've dealt with 25 years ago on Facebook and things, and they're doing well, and so it's kind of that piece of you see some small changes, but the real changes may not happen for 5-10 years down the road, and things. And so for me, it's just that continued hope that I see in kids, in terms of the majority of kids I've worked with don't want to be in detention or be on probation and things. They want to make better choices, and sometimes it's those barriers they have. And so what can we do to help remove those barriers and really work alongside them, instead of just directing them on what they need to do, is really what I've kind of come to the conclusion in my career of really that's much more beneficial and much more of a mentoring position, I would say.
Yeah. So what else changes have you seen in really the population you're dealing with, or what's going on in our community and with our kids?
One is we've continued to see is drug use amongst kids. Alcohol use has dropped off, and not saying that kids aren't drinking anymore, but in terms of what referrals we see, we're not seeing those. And so drug use, up till probably 2 years ago, it was probably one referral that had continued to see an increase, and for a couple different reasons, I think, in terms of we've seen some decrease on that, and we really saw, especially around marijuana, and so we saw a big uptick when medical marijuana came to our state in terms of the availability for kids, and so we saw a pretty good uptick. We thought we'd see the same thing around the recreational piece. We have not. And we've also, in terms of just information we've gotten from kids we've worked with and things, is that prescription pills are being used a lot more. And so when we do urinalysis testing, marijuana stays in your system so long, we can test for that. Prescription pills, it's out within 24, 48 hours. And so if kids are doing that over the weekend, and where urinalysis testing them on Monday, they're going to come back clean. And so, anecdotally, we've just received information from kids that's kind of what they're doing, and we haven't seen a big uptick in terms of referrals on kids being caught with prescription pills, but marijuana continues to be our highest percentage of the urinalysis testing. About 78% of our testing that we do is positive for marijuana.
Gotcha. There's a lot of talk right now. Obviously, the opioid addiction is a big conversation we're having literally nationally. But how's heroin affecting, and probably meth along that same path? Are you seeing?
We see a little bit. It's never. Even when the meth was a big issue within our county, we didn't see a lot of it with juveniles. We saw some, but again, it's in and out of your system fairly quickly too, and so in terms of law violations, it's been fairly consistent in terms of a handful of cases that we get on juveniles for possession of those. One of the interesting law changes for Oregon recently is the declassification of possession of substances. So marijuana, cocaine, any of them that's just sheer possession up to an amount which is pretty high, all have been reduced from felonies to misdemeanors. Probably over the last, I would say, 10 years or so has been mental health issues with kids, right. And so we're seeing a lot more of that, a lot more where access to appropriate treatment for kids that lands them in detention because of their acting out behaviors, and where detention is not the appropriate place for them. And so we've struggled with that in terms of kids acting out or doing self-harm. We've done our best we can. And so we were moving, within the last couple of years, moving towards bringing in more mental health services.
So you mentioned that 20% are girls.
Yes.
So what's been going on with the girl population in our juvenile community?
Yeah. So the interesting is that we have seen a increase in the level of crimes for girls, and so it used to be a lot of thefts in terms of they would shoplift a lot, and so now we're seeing a lot more assaultive behavior, menacing, harassment type, which kind of goes along with the what I mentioned about the risk assessment of it being the higher risk kids.
Gotcha.
Those are the kids we're dealing with. And so we're really just recently started discussion, and we're going to kick this off the 1st of July, is that we're going to move to an all-female probation caseload. So we have 2 female probation officers that are really interested in doing a little bit more intensive work with our girls that live in the community or on probation. And so we're going to develop a program, a pilot program, in terms of looking at providing a little bit more intensive services of meeting once or twice a week with them, doing some group work, doing some connection with our community partners, so life art and things that's focused more around girls, and working with Resolve. They're very interested in that too, and our mental health partners as well. So really trying to focus on the needs of girls, because they're much different than boys. And see if that has a higher impact. I mean, we just on the sheer numbers, we don't have the ability to have like a residential program for girls, because we still don't have the numbers. Hopefully, this will help us. We have sent a percentage of girls off to residential programs through the Oregon Youth Authority, and so we're hoping that this a little bit more intense will keep them locally, where they can continue to live here in the Valley and get the help they need.
Keep up the great work.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope that you learned just a little more about your juvenile justice department here today, and a little more about the person who runs the ship, if you will, Joe Ferguson. So on behalf of Jackson County Close Up, thank you so much for spending some time with us.